Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz. How great is he? Is he as great as we think he is? I'm a huge fan. I really am. I believe he is the franchise guy. I was all for keeping him over Nick Foles. Of course, I was all for Howie Roseman giving him the big payday. That's what you do when you acquire a guy with the second overall pick. He brings you on that 2017 run. He shows you he has a skill set that is very, very unique and solid when it comes to this league. I'm all for it. I love Carson Wentz. I think he is the future of this franchise. And he can bring this team, this organization, on multiple runs in the playoffs, deep runs. I love him. I just want to make sure that is understood. I feel, though, as if some of his flaws, some of the things that he needs to work on gets overlooked by those die-hard Carson Wentz stans. And I lean more towards being a stan than I do a hater. There are a ton of people, a ton of individuals who hate him because of, well, that's a strong word, of course, maybe not hate, but they don't believe in him because he's injury prone. He gets hurt, and because Nick Foles was the guy who actually won the football game and won the Super Bowl. So they look at Carson Wentz with this disgust as if, who is he? Who is he to be this franchise guy? Well, I'll tell you who he is. Without Carson Wentz, there was no Nick Foles miracle run. I mean, it's pretty obvious, and it's obvious that Nick Foles does not have success anywhere else other than Philadelphia. Now, I can't explain that, and don't tell me because he has success here, well, at least you keep him here, because who cares what he has elsewhere? No. It was the obvious, simple answer to keep Carson Wentz as the franchise quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. I just wanted to look at Carson Wentz, look at his pros, look at his cons, look at his stats over the last few seasons, and discuss what is he exactly. Looking at his first year, 24 years old, so an older first year. Remember how many years he played in college. 2016, he went 7-9, played all 16 games. A rookie season for a quarterback, you can't truly judge what he is. But he played 16 games. He did have injury history in college, so to know about his injury history and to see him in his rookie year at least play a full season, that is what I needed to see. And look, you have Doug Peterson coming into the mix. He was, a high school football coach and whatnot, so it wasn't as if he's coming into a Bill Belichick offense or he's coming into an offense where the head coach was someone that you can rely on. You knew exactly what he was. Doug Peterson was learning just as much as Carson Wentz was from a standpoint of coaching. And Doug Peterson was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was under Andy Reid. I know he had experience as a coach in the NFL. It wasn't as if he literally came from high school football. It's hard to judge a quarterback off their rookie season. There's so much to learn. The game is at such a faster pace. These defensive tackles and pass rushers are elite. It's crazy. It's wild. But for a rookie season, you're definitely intrigued for what he is capable of being. 7 wins, okay? It's not like it was a complete dumpster fire. You saw a lot of exciting plays. You saw his arm strength. You could literally lay out the future and say, well, if he grows, if he develops, he can turn into something special. First season in the books. And I don't go by yards. As I stated, I think when we were talking about, I was debating Cam Newton the other day. I was ranking the quarterbacks. That's what I did. I put up a podcast about ranking the quarterbacks and putting them into tiers. I don't like using yards. To be honest with you, I don't even like using wins and losses. It's just like with pitchers. If a pitcher throws an awesome game in baseball, allows one run, but the offense can't score a run, they get a loss. Well, that's unfair. That makes it seem as if the pitcher had an awful day. He got a loss. Well, no, he didn't have an awful day. He let up one run, or even if he does it with 2 runs. I don't like using wins and losses completely to tell a story when it comes to a pitcher or a quarterback. I don't like using yards either, because as the game develops, as the NFL grows and expands and becomes this passing league, numbers, everyone throws for 3,500 plus yards. Everyone throws for 4,000 yards. It doesn't hold as much value compared to, say, when Jaws was quarterback and you barely threw the football. 2017, 25 years old, jumping into the next season here. This was it. That's the Carson Wentz that was beautiful. Only played 13 games of the 16, and I say only, even though 13 of 16 is still a significant amount, considering how many times people get hurt in a football season, and went 11-2. He had the knee injury in Los Angeles. Everything went down from there for him for at least that season. And the rest is history. We know what Nick Foles did. We know how many games he missed that year. Would Carson be viewed differently if he actually won the MVP title? Because there's no denying if he finished out that season, he was going to be the MVP of the league. I wonder if the narrative would change about him. Because right now, he's literally has nothing. He has nothing to his name. No awards, nothing. If he at least had an MVP, does that change the convo? Well, we have an MVP quarterback. For some reason, even though we all understand he would have won it without a doubt, he didn't win it. It went to Tom Brady. Therefore, it's never in the discussion. Now, I'll relate that to, say, Cam Newton. A guy that I support, a guy that I believe isn't over yet when it comes to his career. He has an MVP season under his belt. He had a stellar season. 15 wins, was it? 16 wins? I forget off the top of my head. One of the two. Went to the Super Bowl, failed. No one uses that, really. No one uses that to defend Cam Newton. Oh, that was 1 year. Oh, he's never going to get there again. So maybe it wouldn't change anything. I'm just throwing it out there. I feel like it would, because having that award, then at least you can fall back on and say, he's done it. I mean, he's literally done it. Even though he played that way and didn't win it, for some reason, having the actual hardware changes the storyline completely. In 2016, it was a down season for him. 5-6 in 11 games, and he had the back problems. This is where I like to factor in human nature. Is there something to be said about Carson Wentz being injured? Yes. Date it back to college, date it to the 2017 season, then it factors into the 2018 season. He got injured. There's a correlation between the two in my eyes, though. He has the knee problem. He comes back and he plays 11 games into the next season. The back injury had to have been because of what happened with the knee. These people are human, and we don't look at them as human beings. We feel as if, here's a game, here's a season, oh, they get hurt, well, they'll be back for the next year, and automatically they are back instantly to what they once were. Or whatever occurred with their injury, once the next season starts, that didn't happen. As if you hit the refresh button on your computer, the page reloads. It's the same with these people, as if they're not human beings. And that's not the case. He had a severe injury to his knee. I mean, he had significant damage in that knee, and he was all over the place, torn stuff, whatsoever. He comes back the next season, and I mean, I feel as if the two correlated. You have the knee problem. Now you're totally, maybe mentally thinking about it. Physically, you are switching up things to help that knee. Now it affects the back. Now he's having back problems, and he's getting hit by these big-ass linemen. I mean, it's clearly a correlation between the two. They don't just come back and instantly, here they go, they're ready to rock and roll, they're back in action, he'll be an MVP instantly. They need to go through physical development once having so much damage in one part of their body, and because he needed to help that knee, he would do something to his mechanics, and then that would put more pressure on the other side of his leg, which will factor into his back, and then the back injury happened. I'm not making excuses for him. He has injury history, and you cannot deny. See, that's what I'm saying. I lean towards being a stan more than I am a hater of Carson Wentz, because I really do like him. But there are some times where you do need to realize this is reality. He does have problems. As much as I think he can be great in this league, which I do think he can be great, there are some things to worry about when you take a couple steps back from being that die-hard Philadelphia Eagles fan, which is the beauty of this city, which is the beauty of the passion that we have for this team. But while looking at Carson Wentz and assessing what he is, if you take a couple steps back and just think of him as, pretend you're just an NFL fan who loves football. You're an NFL fan who loves football, who just loves the game. You love dissecting film. You love watching players. You love watching teams compete. What do you think about Carson Wentz? Take away the Eagles fan for just a second. That is part of the equation. Because if it wasn't Carson Wentz, and you talk about it with any other player out there, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and I'm not saying they specifically have this injury history, but if they did, you would talk about that. Cam Newton is one of them. Cam Newton gets talked about the injury history. It deserves to be mentioned. You can look throughout the league and see players who have had time where maybe 3 years in a row injury was a problem, but the next 5 it wasn't. Or maybe they went back-to-back seasons where they only played 6 games, and then they went on a 5-year run where, hey, they were out there every single Sunday competing. Not everybody's like Eli Manning, and I don't think Eli Manning was great. He won his Super Bowls, which puts him in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, because the Super Bowls matter, the championships matter. He played every single Sunday. It wasn't that way. It's not that way for everybody. There are plenty of people who do get injured, and then they find their way, they learn the league, maybe they throw the football way more, they slide better, and they find ways to adjust so they can stay healthy. And not just that, some of it is luck. So as much of his past has been an issue with injuries, that doesn't mean to me that his future is always going to be injuries. 2019, this was the past season. He goes 9-7, 16 games. He gets the concussion in the 17th in the playoff game, and to me that is just unlucky. While the other ones seem to be more, this is his body, not breaking down, but getting hurt. This one is just pure unlucky. Anybody takes that shot to the head while going down, he is going to get hurt. And to me, that was not a play where he should have thrown it away. He has to throw it away there. He can't take that hit. No, that is just a football play where you're making a reaction to seeing a hole. He takes it, and he got hit while going down. It was a cheap shot by Jadeveon Clowney. We all know that by now. It's not his fault. That was just unlucky. If they didn't make the playoffs that year at 9-7, which majority of the time that's not getting you into the postseason, he would be looked at differently. Okay, he wasn't able to get us into the playoffs. He wasn't able to bring us to the Super Bowl, which we all expected before the season started, but he wouldn't have been injured. And it was, hey, they went 9-7, they underachieved, they got banged up, they had no wide receivers, their secondary, they were plugging and playing guys like Orlando Scandrick all the time. That would be the conversation. So it's almost as if he got punished for making it to the first round of the playoffs. Because if they didn't make the playoffs in 9-7 with the same record, that hit would have never happened. The hit would have never happened. And that's the same conversation I take back in 2017. The Carson Wentz haters will look at all of the playoff games and say, that's how many games he missed. So what did he end up missing? The divisional game. He ended up missing the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Added to the 3 games he missed in the regular season. So 6 games he missed in 2017. I don't count those playoff games because he had nothing to do with them. If Nick Foles lost in the divisional round, which was the first game against the Atlanta Falcons that they played, guess what? Then he only missed 4. I mean, it doesn't make sense to use that playoff run and use those games as games that he missed because he had no say on what even occurred, or he had no input or no impact physically in the game to even count. You know, I don't like counting the games he missed because that doesn't make sense in my opinion when you look at it logically. If Nick Foles lost the first game, guess what? Who cares? He only missed 1 then. He only missed 1. The Nick Foles fascination is unbelievable. It really is. Well, not fascination. The obnoxious support. you can look at, I really didn't want to bring up Nick Foles to this. Real quick, though. When the Eagles won against the Bears, when the double doink occurred, Nick Foles had an awful football game. Late, had one drive. It was great. He put the Eagles in position. The rest is history. The Bears go downfield. They missed the field goal, double doink. Did it hit a finger? Who knows? But he had that really good drive late. So after the game, wow, Nick Foles. I'm grinding the Eagles season out. I've mentioned this a few times now. I just watched so many games where Carson Wentz struggled. He struggled. He looked bad in the first half against the Falcons. He did not look great against the Lions, but he delivered with the ball late. The Eagles could not execute. The Green Bay Packers, I don't think it was his smoothest game. They did run the football a lot at times, but guess what happened late? The Eagles needed a drive. He put that drive together, and then Aaron Rodgers came downfield. He threw the interception in the end zone, even though he had a wide open person, and the rest is history. But the Eagles needed a big-time drive. He helped put that team on that big-time drive. It was literally the same exact scenario that happened with Nick Foles against the Bears. One's playoffs, one's week 4 of the regular season. Two totally different times of the schedule. Totally understandable. But it was the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing that played out. Not a great game at all, but then when needed too late, both quarterbacks did what they needed to do, sustained a drive, scored, and then from there, they won the game. But it only matters when it's Nick Foles. Only Nick Foles can do that. Nick Foles was not stellar in all these games that he stepped in. Anyway, I really don't want to go down that conversation because it's just something else. So Carson Wentz will be 28 for the next season, if the season even happens. Who the hell knows what's going down? The more and more I think about it, I'm scared that this is going to head into the fall. And I do believe that this might head into the fall. Truthfully, deep down inside, I don't know if we are going to, maybe not the whole season getting canceled. I don't know if it's going to start because it affects the OTAs. It affects the time preparing and all of that. And you can't just rock and roll into a season without preparing, without having preseason games. It might be a nightmare when it comes to football. I really hate to admit that. Let's just get through the draft to see if they even do that properly before we start guessing what's going to happen in terms of getting guys together, getting coaches together, and having some sort of voluntary practices and whatnot. My point of bringing up his age, though, is he's 28 years old after 4 seasons. That's old. And it's starting to get to the point where that is the range of, well, it's not that old, all right? You can play till you're 40-plus years old at this point. Look at Brady. Look at Breeze. You can play deep into your career. 28 isn't that old. It's in that frame, though, that I always go to. 27 to 33 is my favorite prime numbers. Not prime numbers in the definition sense. Prime numbers in sports, as in that's your prime. In football, though, I do think that it's different than, say, basketball. In basketball, you start getting 34, 35. Your body breaks down differently. In football, at the quarterback position, with the way that they are protected in today's game, you could be 34, 35, 36, and still have really great seasons. I still love that 27 to 33 window, though. And Carson is 28. And while he's 28, you can always grow as a player. You can always learn this game. 4 years in, it's not like he has 10 years under his belt. He's got 4 years in, which is a decent amount of time to learn and grow, but it's not to an obnoxious level. When I look at some of the problems with his game, I wonder if that development is still going to happen, or is this what he is? And to an extent, I do think that there are there's parts of his game that they just are what they are. It's sometimes the beauty of it. It's sometimes the bad part of it as well. But that's what you get with Carson Wentz. It's sort of like you always hear you never want to change a player's personality. On the ice, this is who they are. That's what they do. If they chirp, they chirp. That's like saying, let's get Travis Konechny of the Flyers to stop chirping all the time. Well, that's part of who he is on the ice. Same with Kevin Hayes. There's always guys that play with a little bit more swagger out on the field. Or Pat Beverly. I'll use basketball as an example. We know Pat Beverly. He's this guy who plays with energy. He's smacking the floor. He's slapping his hands. He's gritty. He might allow his opponent to score 35 points on him, but you would never know with the way he plays the game. He just plays with that attitude. There are players who play with certain personalities on their respected field or ice or court. With Carson, his personality is to be aggressive, to always try and make that play. I do believe that he needs to learn how to sometimes realize the play is not there. Live another day. The greats do that. Brady does it. Last year, you saw it all the time. Listen, there's nothing there. I'm 43 years old. I'm chucking it to the ground. I'm just going to chuck it to the ground. Drew Brees, he throws it away. Russell Wilson, he throws it away. He does need to learn that there are times where everyone's covered. I got to get rid of this. I can't take a big hit. I can't try to extend this play. And if I do, I might fumble. His fumbling issues is a big-time concern. He's always putting the ball on the floor, and that is part of this because he's always trying to make the great play. While I say that, though, the beauty of Carson Wentz, don't we all remember that play against Washington Redskins a few years back, the Super Bowl season? There's 5 guys on him, and he escapes, and he sneaks underneath, and he throws it out. Just miraculous plays all the time. How about that play last year against the Falcons when he escapes, and he's falling forward? As he's falling forward, his knee is like a half inch from the ground, and he throws it away. That play from the 2017 run against the Seattle Seahawks where he's getting chased down. Another one where he's getting tackled as he's launching the ball, and he's so close to touching the ground, and he's still throwing it downfield. For as brutal as some of the plays are, you need to accept those brutal plays to realize the great plays as well, and that's just who Carson Wentz is as a player. That's his personality. I'm not saying he doesn't need to learn moments. He needs to learn moments. Sometimes, dude, it's not worth the risk. Not worth the risk at all. This last season against the Falcons, he threw 2 interceptions. Both of them, he's just relying on his arm strength, saying, screw it, let me throw it up there. All right, Carson, that's a time where in film you got to realize you can't do that. He needs to slide. He needs to slide more, right? I mean, these are things that he has to do mechanically. Sometimes the footwork, it's just not there. So as much as I love Carson, there are plenty of things to work on, and he's 28, though. And I bring that up and I say, I know this guy is dedicated to the game. You don't need to question how much he loves football, how much he loves film, how much he loves learning, how much he loves developing, right? So I'm not questioning his work ethic into becoming this guy. At 28, though, here's the thing. You need to factor in when he came in. If he came in at 20 years old, well, that's like 8 seasons in, right? If he comes in at 21, it's 8 and 7 seasons in. He's only 4 in because of how long he played college football. So while I look at 28 and it's like, okay, I wish he was more in an Aaron Rodgers type prime. That's me being optimistic on what he can be, of course. But I wish at 28 he was more in an Aaron Rodgers prime than he is. He's more still in that developing stage than so that Aaron Rodgers prime. I just wish at this point, at 28 years old, he would be in that domination prime mode, and I don't think he is. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be that from 30 to 34 or 29 to 34 or anything like that and have 5 prime windows or 5 prime seasons in that window. Sure, he can. I think Carson Wentz is still going up. My point is I still think he's going up. He just still has a lot to work on as well. It's crazy to think what he has done so far in his career while not being perfect. While not being perfect, he has still had very great moments, very great games, and one insane season that led the Eagles to the Super Bowl. And I can't stand as much as I hate how much Foles gets like insane praise. I hate how much Carson Wentz gets looked down upon when it comes to that season, as if he had no impact on it at all. It blows my mind. Without Carson, there's no Nick Foles. Without Carson Wentz in 2017, there is no Nick Foles. It's that simple. And I hate how this always goes back to that, but it will forever until Carson delivers. Until Carson wins the Super Bowl, this will always happen. And then guess what? When he does do it, and I say when because he will, Then it's which quarterback's better, right? It's not even, oh, Nick Foles is definitely better. And then this stupid conversation happens. It's just which one's better. And then that's the debate, as if it should ever even really be a damn debate. Last thing real quick on what Carson can do better. And the locker room thing should be at least mentioned. Now, how much stock do I put into it? Not a ton, but it needs to at least be addressed. If Alshon Jeffrey is a problem and he doesn't like Carson Wentz, and I'm just using Alshon Jeffrey because that's the name that everybody seems to put together, even though at this point I don't know if the Eagles are going to move on from him or not based off of what the salary is and if anyone would even trade for him and what Howie said to the media a week or two back. If Alshon is a problem and he doesn't like Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz is doing nothing wrong, somebody else in this situation, it is Alshon Jeffrey in my mind and in this scenario, if he is the problem and he doesn't like Carson Wentz, well then why is it Carson Wentz that has the issue? Why is it his problem when it comes to not being able to be right in the locker room? Jason Peters loved him. Jason Kelsey loved him. Lane Johnson sure loved him. Miles Sanders loves him. There's plenty of guys that love Carson Wentz. Zach Ertz definitely loves him. Malcolm, Dallas Goedert. There are plenty of people who really enjoy Carson Wentz. Jordan Matthews definitely loved him. And I believe Golden Tate as well for his short time here. That's something that we like to remember, right? Golden Tate, that trade. Hey, he caught that ball, though. He caught that Nick Foles ball in the playoff game against the Bears, so it automatically made that third-round pick worth it. I just think about how if one person is a problem towards somebody else, it doesn't make it that somebody else being the issue if it's that one person who is the problem, who can be Alshon. But because he's the quarterback, because he's the guy that's supposed to lead the locker room, he's the true leader, the big voice besides the head coach, it's going to look bad on his part. Now, I do think to an extent there might be a little something there, and Carson even came out about it. He spoke about it. I can do a better job at maybe relating to the team, being friendly with the team. And then he starts to do stuff in the offseason with these guys. He's literally spoken about it. So I know that to some extent, he probably believes it as well. Like, hey, maybe I haven't done my best job being there for every single player on the roster. Maybe I've emotionally tied myself to some of my better friends on the team. I can do a better job relating with everybody. And it could be as simple as that, but with headlines, with media, with Josina Anderson, with all of this, with all the fans involved, it gets blown out of proportion. Crazy, huh? I would have never guessed in a million years that that was a possibility. I like Carson Wentz. I really do. It's a blessing and a curse with his aggressiveness. At the end of the day, I think he has what it takes to be the franchise guy for years to come. I think this team has a chance every single season that he is playing for this team. And that's what I always ask for when it comes to my teams that I root for. Put them in a position, get them a guy, go get one superstar, one player, one person that puts this team in a position to fight for the playoffs every year. From there, it is what it is, but all I ask for is a chance to win and to get into the playoffs every single season. Once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen, and from there, if he has a bad football game in the playoffs, I will criticize him. I will discuss it. I will break it down. He deserves the blame in those moments. From an organizational standpoint, and from the franchise's standpoint, and from my viewpoint on those organizations, I just ask for, give us a team, a roster that is good enough to compete where I can believe on any given Sunday, on any given game day, they can win. They can win. And from there, we assess the situation. Carson Wentz, he gives us that. He is that talented. His high, his ceiling, we've seen it in 2017. It's special. It is legitimately special. It's now about getting that out of him consistently. It's about getting the right pieces around him, supporting him with a great cast. He's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady can do it with me out there, with you out there. Okay, Carson Wentz isn't that. Not everyone's Tom Brady. Really, nobody's Tom Brady. There are some guys that can get away with less talent. And last year he did that with Greg Ward and Rob Davis. But he played the Giants, the Redskins, some bad football teams. And I acknowledge that. It was still impressive to do it. He had to win a bunch of games straight to get them in the playoffs. It's not easy to do with those type of players. They were hungry. They made plays too. You need to support him with the right cast, and that's fine by me. Teams win championships. Teams win championships. You need 50 plus to win a title. You need great head coaching to win a title. I think Doug Peterson, to an extent, is that. My thought process on Doug Peterson is great. Maybe that's what we'll do next. Maybe we'll break down how I feel about Dougie P. I do like Dougie. I want to make that clear. I do like Dougie. But I do think that there is some interesting parts about his style. All right. We'll definitely get into that another time. So, yes, Carson Wentz, great quarterback. Pumped to have him for years. Can't wait to see him compete. Does need to work on some things. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.